Respect is the invisible foundation of every relationship. Love may ignite the spark, passion may fuel desire, but without respect, everything collapses into dust. When a man loses respect for a woman, something profound changes, not only in the relationship itself but also in the way both individuals grow, connect, and perceive themselves. This is not simply a matter of romance, it is a question of psychology, of human dignity, and of the philosophical balance that sustains true intimacy. Let us explore the layers of what really happens when respect fades, and why it is one of the most dangerous silent killers of relationships. 1. The disappearance of admiration. At the beginning of most relationships, a man admires the woman he is with. He may admire her intelligence, her independence, her kindness, or even her mysterious silence. This admiration is not just about beauty, it is about qualities that awaken reverence. When respect dies, admiration dies with it. The man no longer sees her as someone to look up to, but merely as someone to tolerate. Words that once carried kindness may turn sharp. The light in his eyes when he looked at her is replaced by indifference. In psychological terms, admiration is the glue that makes attraction sustainable. Without it, attraction decays into routine, and routine decays into resentment. 2. The rise of contempt. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. Yet in relationships, when respect is lost, indifference often gives birth to something even more poisonous: contempt. Contempt is not always loud. It can appear in small gestures, the rolling of eyes, the sarcastic tone, the hidden sighs when she speaks. It can appear in public humiliation, where a man belittles a woman to make himself appear superior. And sometimes, contempt is silent, a complete withdrawal of attention, affection, and care. From a psychological perspective, contempt is one of the strongest predictors of a relationship's failure. It signals not only a loss of love but a loss of basic humanity between two people. Once contempt becomes the atmosphere, it suffocates everything noble in the connection. 3. Emotional distance and isolation. Respect allows two souls to come close without fear. But when respect is gone, distance begins to grow. The man may still live under the same roof, but emotionally he is already far away. Conversations become shallow. Moments of joy become rare. The woman begins to feel invisible in her own relationship. Here lies the paradox: the closer they are physically, the further apart they feel spiritually. The psychological cost of this distance is enormous. Loneliness within a relationship is far more painful than loneliness in solitude, because it is the loneliness of being unseen by the very person who once promised to see you forever. 4. The breakdown of trust. Respect and trust are twins, one cannot exist without the other. When a man no longer respects a woman, he often no longer feels bound by loyalty. Promises lose their weight. His words become empty currency. He may still say, "I love you," but the actions betray the truth. The woman, sensing this collapse, begins to question everything. Can I still trust him? Does he still value me? Am I still enough? This erosion of trust damages her sense of security, which is the foundation of emotional intimacy. Without trust, every conversation feels fragile, every silence feels dangerous. 5. The diminishing of her value in his eyes. When respect disappears, so too does the perception of value. The man begins to see the woman not as a partner, but as a possession, a background character in his own story. He may take her efforts for granted. He may belittle her choices. In extreme cases, he may even exploit her kindness, knowing she will endure because of love. This is not only unjust but deeply dehumanizing. Philosophically speaking, Immanuel Kant warned against treating another person as a means to an end rather than as an end in themselves. When respect is gone, a man violates this principle, reducing the woman's dignity to mere utility. 6. The psychological impact on the woman. The consequences of lost respect do not remain external, they invade the inner world of the woman. Slowly, she may begin to doubt herself. She may ask, "What did I do wrong? Am I unworthy of respect?" This self-doubt can grow into self-blame, and self-blame into silent suffering. From a psychological angle, this is the danger of internalized disrespect. When repeated often enough, the disrespect of another can become the voice of one's own inner critic. This is why many women in such relationships experience lowered self-esteem, anxiety, and even depression. The tragedy is that they begin to see themselves through the distorted mirror of the man's contempt. 7. The cycle of power and control. Sometimes, the loss of respect is not an accident but a deliberate strategy. A man who seeks control may withhold respect as a way of asserting dominance. By making the woman feel small, he makes himself feel big. By denying her dignity, he inflates his own fragile ego. This dynamic is toxic because it traps the relationship in a cycle of power rather than partnership. Instead of two equals walking side by side, it becomes one towering over the other. True love cannot breathe in such an atmosphere, because love is rooted in freedom, not control. 8. The philosophical meaning of respect. Let us pause here and ask, why is respect so essential? Respect is not merely politeness. It is not merely saying kind words. Respect is the recognition of the other as a soul, as a being with equal worth. To respect someone is to acknowledge their humanity fully, without condition. Philosophically, respect is the bridge between self and other. Without it, relationships collapse into self-interest. Respect is not about perfection, it is about dignity. Even in disagreement, respect allows dialogue. Even in conflict, respect allows resolution. When respect is lost, what remains is not partnership but rivalry, not intimacy but emptiness. 9. How a woman responds to lost respect. When a man loses respect for a woman, she faces a choice. Some remain in silence, hoping things will change. Some fight, trying to win back what was lost. And some walk away, realizing that without respect, love is already dead. The most powerful response is rooted in self-respect. A woman who values herself refuses to accept less than dignity. She understands that she cannot force respect from another, it must be freely given. But she can choose not to remain where respect is absent. This is where philosophy meets psychology. Wisdom teaches that self-respect is the foundation of any meaningful connection. Without it, no external love can truly heal the wounds of contempt. 10. The inevitable end. When respect has vanished completely, the relationship is like a body without a soul. It may continue for a time, out of habit or convenience, but it is already hollow. Sooner or later, resentment, betrayal, or indifference will bring it to an end. Yet even in this ending, there is a lesson. Respect is not something we demand, it is something we inspire by how we carry ourselves, by the boundaries we uphold, and by the dignity we refuse to surrender. 11. Respect is the mirror of self-worth. When a man loses respect for a woman, it often forces her to examine the mirror of her own self-worth. Respect is reciprocal, it reflects how we see ourselves and how others see us. If she continues to allow disrespect, she risks internalizing the idea that she is undeserving of better. But if she draws a line, she demonstrates that her worth is not dependent on someone else's recognition. This act of self-respect often shifts the entire dynamic. Sometimes, the man begins to see what he lost. Sometimes, the relationship collapses under the weight of her boundaries. Either way, the woman rises, because she chose dignity over degradation. This is why psychologists emphasize that the most important respect is not external but internal. A woman who respects herself commands respect from the world around her. 12. The loss of respect and masculinity. From the man's perspective, losing respect for a woman does not make him stronger. In fact, it reveals weakness. To disrespect another is to reveal insecurity. The man who truly possesses confidence and inner stability does not need to belittle. He honors others because he honors himself. When a man loses respect, it is often a symptom of his own spiritual poverty. He may feel threatened by her strength, her independence, or her intelligence. Instead of celebrating these qualities, he tries to reduce them. Philosophically speaking, this is a form of cowardice, the inability to stand beside an equal and honor her as such. Thus, disrespect does not only damage the woman, it corrodes the man's own masculinity, leaving him smaller, not greater. 13. The invisible damage to love. Love cannot survive where respect is absent. What remains may look like love on the surface, dinners together, shared photos, perhaps even children, but at the heart of it lies emptiness. Love requires admiration. It requires seeing the other as someone worthy of care, worthy of sacrifice, worthy of loyalty. When respect is gone, love becomes a mask. People may continue the performance, but behind closed doors the truth is silence, distance, and coldness. This is why psychologists and philosophers alike agree, the first sign of dying love is not the end of passion, but the end of respect. Passion can be rekindled. Respect, once lost, is far harder to restore. 14. The role of boundaries. Boundaries are the architecture of respect. A woman who does not set boundaries leaves the door open for disrespect to grow. This is not about being cold or harsh, it is about being clear. Boundaries teach others how to treat us. When a man crosses those boundaries repeatedly, and the woman says nothing, he learns that disrespect is permitted. Over time, this shapes the entire relationship. On the other hand, when she calmly but firmly enforces her boundaries, she communicates, "I respect myself, and I will not allow you to treat me otherwise." From a psychological angle, Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They allow healthy people in and keep harmful behaviors out. Without them, respect cannot survive. 15. Silence and its power. One of the most powerful responses to lost respect is silence. Not the silence of fear or resignation, but the silence of wisdom. Instead of endless arguments or desperate pleas, silence communicates strength. It says, "I do not need to beg for what should be natural." Philosophically, silence has always been a weapon of the wise. It creates space for reflection, it withdraws energy from conflict, and it forces the other person to face the emptiness of their actions. In relationships, silence often speaks louder than words, reminding the man that respect is not optional but essential. 16. The feminine power of walking away. When a man loses respect for a woman, sometimes the ultimate act of power is walking away. This decision is not born of anger but of clarity. To walk away is to say, "I will not stay where my dignity is denied." This act requires courage, because it means leaving behind comfort, history, and sometimes even love. Yet it is also an act of rebirth. Walking away transforms pain into strength, loss into freedom. It shows that respect for oneself outweighs the fear of being alone. Philosophers have long argued that freedom is the essence of human dignity. To remain in chains of disrespect is to betray that freedom. To walk away is to honor it. 17. Can respect be restored? The question remains, once respect is lost, can it ever return? The answer is complex. In some cases, yes. If both partners are willing to acknowledge the damage, to rebuild trust, and to honor each other anew, respect can be reborn. But it requires deep humility, consistent action, and time. More often, however, lost respect is like shattered glass. Even if the pieces are gathered, the cracks remain. The relationship may continue, but it is never as pure as before. This is why wise souls guard respect as the most sacred treasure. It is easier to preserve than to repair. 18. Lessons beyond relationships. The loss of respect between a man and a woman teaches lessons beyond romance. It reflects a universal truth: every human connection, friendship, family, work, rests on respect. Without it, hierarchies become tyranny, partnerships become exploitation, and communities become fragmented. Respect is not simply about relationships between individuals, it is the foundation of society. The philosopher Confucius once said, "Respect yourself, and others will respect you." This principle, though ancient, remains the compass of human dignity in every age. 19. The woman who chooses herself. At the heart of this discussion is one central figure, the woman who chooses herself. She understands that love without respect is an illusion, that companionship without dignity is a cage. She does not measure her worth by a man's treatment of her. Instead, she roots her worth in her own soul. This woman embodies both philosophy and psychology, the wisdom to know her value and the strength to act upon it. She may grieve the loss of respect, but she does not allow it to define her. She rises beyond it, carrying her lessons into the future. 20. Final reflection. So, what happens when a man loses respect for a woman? 1,000 small fractures appear in the bond. Admiration vanishes, contempt grows, trust collapses, and love withers. The woman suffers, but she also holds the power to transform the story, through silence, through boundaries, through walking away, or through reclaiming her own self-respect. In the end, the loss of respect is not just the end of a relationship, it is a revelation. It shows where dignity is denied, where strength is required, and where freedom must be chosen. And in this revelation lies the deepest wisdom. Respect is not a gift to be begged for, it is the ground on which true love stands. Without it, nothing survives. 21. The subtle erosion of intimacy. When respect disappears, intimacy does not collapse in a single moment, it erodes gradually. At first, there may still be gestures of affection, but they lack depth. Physical closeness may remain, but emotional closeness is gone. The man no longer shares his fears, his dreams, or his vulnerabilities, because respect is the door that allows vulnerability to exist safely. For the woman, this erosion feels like a silent abandonment. She is present, but not received. She is near, but not cherished. Over time, the intimacy that once nourished both souls dries up, leaving only the shell of what was once a living connection. 22. Disrespect as a form of violence. Not all violence is physical. Psychological disrespect can wound more deeply than physical harm. A harsh word, an insult, or constant belittlement leaves scars on the spirit. Unlike physical wounds, these scars are invisible, making them harder to heal and harder for others to recognize. This is why philosophers and psychologists alike insist that respect is not optional, It is the minimum condition for any ethical relationship. To live with someone who does not respect you is to endure a daily erosion of the soul. It is violence in slow motion. 23. The woman's awakening. Yet within this suffering lies the possibility of awakening. Many women, through the pain of lost respect, discover their true strength. They realize that their value does not depend on being desired or validated, but on the unshakable dignity of their own existence. This awakening can be compared to the breaking of chains. At first, the chains are invisible. They are woven from words, habits, and the comfort of routine. But once seen, they cannot be unseen. The woman who awakens from disrespect often emerges stronger, clearer, and more radiant than before. 24. Respect is the foundation of feminine power. Feminine power is not about domination, it is about presence, grace, and wisdom. Yet this power can only flourish in an environment of respect. When a man loses respect, he does not just wound the woman, he diminishes the very beauty of the relationship. However, when a woman insists on respect, her power multiplies. She no longer plays small to be loved. She no longer silences her voice to be accepted. She lives authentically, knowing that true respect will meet her at her full strength, not at her weakness. Psychologically, this is the moment when feminine power shifts from seeking validation to radiating self-assurance. Philosophically, it is the triumph of dignity over dependency. 25. The illusion of staying for love. Many women remain in relationships where respect is gone because they confuse attachment with love. They think, if I leave, I will lose love. But the truth is harsher, love without respect is already lost. What remains is habit, fear of loneliness, or the illusion of security. Philosophers warn us against illusions. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, described how people mistake shadows for reality. Similarly, staying in a relationship without respect is like staring at shadows on the wall, believing them to be love. True love, like the light outside the cave, requires courage to step into. 26. The consequences for future generations. When children grow up in a home where a man does not respect a woman, they learn dangerous lessons. Sons may grow to believe that disrespect is acceptable, while daughters may grow to believe that it is inevitable. The cycle repeats, not because anyone consciously chooses it, but because it was silently inherited. This is why reclaiming respect is not only a personal act but a generational one. When a woman demands respect, she is not only protecting herself, she is teaching her children what love should look like. She is planting seeds for a healthier future, where dignity is the norm and not the exception. 27. Respect and the philosophy of equality. At the core, the loss of respect is a violation of equality. Every human being is born with equal dignity. To respect another is to acknowledge that equality. To disrespect is to deny it. When a man loses respect for a woman, he places himself above her in a false hierarchy. He pretends to be the judge of her worth. But true philosophy reminds us that no one has the right to reduce another's humanity. Respect is not earned by perfection, it is granted by existence itself. Thus, when respect is gone, it is not the woman who is truly diminished, but the man who has failed to recognize the truth of human equality. 28. The power of reflection. Sometimes, the loss of respect can be a mirror for both partners. For the man, it may reveal unresolved wounds, insecurities, or misunderstandings. For the woman, it may reveal unhealed patterns of seeking approval or tolerating less than she deserves. This is where psychology and philosophy meet. Both insist that crises are opportunities for growth. If both partners are willing to reflect, the loss of respect can become the spark for transformation. But if reflection is avoided, the relationship remains a battlefield of egos. 29. The courage to demand more. Ultimately, what happens when a man loses respect for a woman depends on her response. If she tolerates it, the cycle continues. If she demands more, not through aggression, but through clarity, she shifts the entire balance. Demanding respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is the rightful expectation of any soul. Just as we demand air to breathe, we must demand respect to live. Without it, life becomes suffocation. 30. A closing vision. Imagine a world where no woman accepts love without respect, and no man offers love without it. Relationships would be transformed. Families would be healed. Societies would be elevated. When a man loses respect for a woman, the story can end in pain. But it can also end in awakening. For the woman, it is the chance to rediscover her own power. For the man, it is the chance to confront his own emptiness. And for both, it is the reminder that respect is the sacred ground of every bond. Without it, love dies. With it, love becomes eternal. 31. When respect disappears, Illusions break. There is a moment in every relationship where the veil falls. When respect is lost, the illusion of love begins to crack. Many women cling to the image of what the relationship once was, the first dates, the sweet words, the promises whispered in the dark. But illusions cannot hold a soul forever. The disappearance of respect forces truth into the open. It reveals whether the relationship was built on real partnership or on fragile fantasies. Psychology teaches us that illusions serve as comfort, but they eventually collapse under reality. Philosophy teaches us that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than falsehood. The loss of respect is a brutal teacher, but it is also an honest one. 32. The emotional cost of disrespect. Living with a man who does not respect you is like living in a house with invisible smoke. At first, you do not notice. You tell yourself it's fine, that you can breathe. But slowly, your lungs begin to ache, your energy begins to fade, and your spirit suffocates. Disrespect poisons slowly. It makes a woman doubt her beauty, her intelligence, her worth. It makes her question her instincts, as if she is the problem for noticing the smoke. Psychologists call this gaslighting, a subtle manipulation that erodes one's trust in their own perception. And yet, once the woman recognizes the smoke for what it is, she cannot unsee it. Her awakening begins at the moment she decides she deserves fresh air. 33. The death of partnership. A true relationship is a partnership, a dance where both lift each other higher. Respect is the rhythm of this dance. When the rhythm breaks, the dance collapses. Without respect, the man no longer supports her dreams. He may dismiss her ambitions or mock her struggles. He no longer sees her as an ally but as someone in the background of his own story. This is the death of partnership. Philosophically, love without partnership is an imbalance. It becomes self-serving, a performance of connection rather than the reality of it. The tragedy is not just the loss of love, but the loss of what love was meant to be, a shared journey of growth. 34. Why disrespect is never small. Many people think disrespect only means extreme cruelty. But in truth, disrespect begins with the smallest cracks, the interrupted sentence, the ignored message, the careless insult. Over time, these cracks grow into unbridgeable distances. Disrespect is cumulative. What seems small today becomes unbearable tomorrow. This is why wise women do not ignore the signs. They know that every drop of disrespect collects into an ocean of pain. Philosophy teaches that the small always reflects the great. A single crack in the foundation can collapse an entire building. Likewise, a single pattern of disrespect can collapse an entire love. 35. The sacredness of dignity. To lose respect for another person is not just a failure of love, it is a violation of dignity. Dignity is sacred. It is the essence of our humanity. It is what makes us more than bodies, more than roles, more than possessions. When a man strips a woman of dignity through disrespect, he does not just wound her, he wounds the very principle of human worth. He lowers himself in the process, because he chooses to dishonor what should never be dishonored. The woman who protects her dignity, even when love is at stake, is the woman who remains whole. She may lose the relationship, but she never loses herself. 36. Why self-respect attracts true love. A powerful truth emerges from this: self-respect is the magnet of true love. A woman who respects herself will never accept half-love, half-truths, or half-hearted promises. She attracts men who see her worth because she reflects it herself. Psychologists note that relationships mirror our inner state. When we respect ourselves, we create an unspoken standard that others follow. When we neglect ourselves, we unconsciously invite neglect from others. Philosophers echo this with timeless wisdom: know thyself. To know oneself is to honor oneself. And to honor oneself is to demand that others do the same. 37. The freedom in letting go of a man who no longer respects you is one of the hardest acts of courage. It feels like tearing your heart from your chest. And yet, paradoxically, it is also liberation. In letting go, you reclaim your freedom. You remind yourself that you are not chained by another's blindness. You discover that solitude with dignity is greater than companionship with contempt. The freedom in letting go is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is the freedom of returning to yourself, of hearing your own voice again, of walking in the light of self-respect. 38. Respect is the foundation of all love. When we strip away illusions, when we remove the layers of passion, romance, and comfort, one truth remains: without respect, there is no love. Love built on disrespect is not love, it is dependency, illusion, or desire. Respect is what transforms desire into devotion. It is what turns companionship into partnership. It is what makes love not just a feeling, but a force that elevates both souls. This is why the woman must never forget, The first sign of true love is not words of passion, but acts of respect. 39. The eternal lesson. So, what happens when a man loses respect for a woman? He loses the very essence of connection. He loses admiration, intimacy, trust, and love. She may suffer, but through that suffering she discovers her own strength. He may think he gained control, but in truth, he lost the chance to love deeply. The eternal lesson is clear: respect is the root. Without it, no flower of love can bloom. With it, love can endure storms, trials, and time itself. 40. Closing words of wisdom to every woman who has ever felt the coldness of lost respect: remember that your worth does not shrink when someone fails to see it. Respect begins within you. Guard it fiercely. Demand it fearlessly. And never trade it for empty promises. To every man, know that the greatest measure of your strength is how you honor the woman beside you. Respect is not weakness, it is greatness. It is the mark of a man who has conquered his own ego and can therefore stand as an equal with another soul. And to all who seek love, build it not on illusions, not on fleeting passion, but on the sacred foundation of respect. For only then will love be not a fire that burns out, but a flame that guides you through the darkness, steady and eternal.